Hello and welcome to another DIY terrain video. This video will show you most of the steps taken to create a Dwarven mine. I plan on using this for the first scenario in the Hellfire and Stone campaign book, recently released from Mantic Games for their game Kings of War. The supplies I used in this video are as follows: pink insulation foam, white glue, toothpicks, Army Painter's Battlefield's Jungle Tufts, Woodland Scenic's Gray Blend Medium Ballast, Light Gray Medium Ballast, Dark Green Coarse Turf, Burnt Grass Coarse Turf, and balsa wood. The tools used in this video are a knife, hot wire cutter, hot glue gun, and sandpaper. The paint colors that were used were black, dark gray, light gray, flat brown, and a lighter brown highlight. As you can see, I've sped up some of these clips because watching a second-by-second version of this would be quite lengthy and probably pretty boring to watch. So to start, I went and grabbed some scrap pink foam and stacked it up. My inspiration came from a hobby section of the Hellfire and Stone book itself. So if you see some similarities, you know what I was aiming for. After finding the pieces I wanted and stacking it all up, I drew a rough opening on the front for the entrance itself. Now that I have an entrance drawn, I began to cut with a hot wire knife and a regular knife. To be honest, there is no rhyme or reason to this. I tend to alternate depending on what's easier to make the particular cut. I tend to just keep repeating this process until it looks like the vision I have in my head. Also, while making most terrain, I tend to keep a unit of figures or just a solo figure nearby so I can size things up appropriately. Now that the entrance has been cut, I glued the layers together with white glue and toothpicks. The toothpicks tend to help the strength of the piece when it's composed entirely of insulation foam. I also cut up some pieces of balsa wood for a brace on the entrance of the mine. I held it in place with hot glue. Generally, a normal hot glue gun will melt right through this type of foam, but the glue gun I am using has both a high and low temperature setting. On low, it doesn't tend to melt the foam much at all. After the layers have been put together and the braces were in place, I used some books to weigh it down and let the glue dry. Once everything was dry, I started sculpting the outside of the cave entrance. Since this is a standalone piece, I am aiming for a rocky outcropping look on the outside rather than trying to match anything in particular. The same technique as before, using a combination of both knife and hot wire cutter. It's not shown here in the video, but I did use some sandpaper to smooth out some areas. Once all of the cutting was done, I put a base coat of black paint down on the entire piece. After the black base coat was dry, I went back with a dark gray dry brush over the entire piece, making sure to leave plenty of the black showing through. Then I repeated this same step with a smaller brush in a lighter gray color and in a lower amount, and most of the areas that stick out the most. Now there's no shot of this because I forgot to turn the camera on, but I painted the supports of the mine entrance with a flat brown first, and then I highlighted it with a lighter brown color. Next up was the layers of foliage. I started with a layer of Woodland Scenic's light gray medium ballast. I then filled in the larger surface areas with gray blend medium ballast. After that, I applied some dark green coarse turf and burnt grass coarse turf next to each other to give the appearance of some overgrowth. Finally, I put a few pieces of Army Painter's Battlefield Jungle Tufts. These are just patches of static grass that are pre-cut and pre-made. They're ready to use right out of the package. So there you have it, a completed Dwarven mine. This piece will work well with games like Warhammer Fantasy, Kings of War, and maybe even some skirmish games too. As always, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video.